So, Jordan, you gave up a couple of big plays in that game. Baylor, that seemed to sort of take over, and you guys couldn't overcome it. This time, defense started to step up after that. So, was it just a confidence level? What allowed you to just sort of put that behind you this time around?
Yeah, I think the difference was our kids were able to recover from the explosives and understand. And I think that more than anything is I've talked about maturity and growth with this group, and I think that shows that we're at least gaining some ground there because we're able to overcome those. It's really just a critical mistake. The first one was a signal, and the second one was a guy really just trying to do more than his job, do it too much. But we calmed down, and you take those two away. The third one in the second half was something that they actually caught us by surprise with a personnel that they really haven't shown, or less than 3%. So they gave us we had number one, see the personnel, number two, see the formation. So that was more of a schematic issue that led to the third touchdown. But the two early ones were things that were mistakes on our part. But I was proud of how the guys recovered.
You were talking about the second Hall long run. Was that when they
yes.
went unbalanced?
Yes, unbalanced. Had more surface that they will only do in that personnel. I did not realize on the first play till into the game that they normally had done that with 43, and I did not realize. I don't think anybody did that, because if you look back on film, I guess he got hurt. I don't know if he got hurt, but he left the game, and so they rotated to more tight ends, which in that situation changes the sets of formations you're going to get, and so they got us on that one.
Neil was complimentary to Dante's play the last month, saying he's playing his best football. So, your view of how Dante Stills is playing lately?
Yeah, I think it's Neil's spot on. I think he's number one. There's growth and I think it goes back to him not expecting himself to make every play, and just the level of D-line play that he's playing. And you put and I think that the level of play of guys around him has obviously helped with that too. Dante's played, like Coach said, he's played his best ball probably over the last month.
We see the sacks, and we see the tackles for loss from Dante and Messador. What do they do though that we don't see to make that defense better?
I think like I was talking with Dante, it's the level. We're using this. I was using this as an example with Edward Vesterinen in his evaluation process. One of the things that stuck out about Edward, and the same things that stick out about Dante's level of play over the last month and Akeem's level of play, especially in his second year, is when you look at evaluation of a player. I don't a lot of times look at highlight videos, because that's a given, right? I'm going to see sacks, I'm going to see tackles for loss. But what you really look for is the level of D-line play. Are they using their hands? Are they playing with leverage? How are their feet at contact? How do they react to blocks? And I think that is what you see, especially out of Dante. But Akeem in his second year, and really the job that Andrew Jackson's done with those guys, that's what sticks out the most. It's the level of play at that position. They play really good fundamental football, which has allowed a lot of the other parts of the defense to work better.
Are they both getting double teamed most of the time, or?
I think a lot of times, yeah. If you look at, I said this a couple weeks ago, where Baylor had such a good game plan was how they attack us, and when you have those guys and the people have to do that, then you kind of know how you're going to get attacked. But again, you look at some of the other guys that are stepping into role. Jordan Jefferson's the one that's stepping into to a roll. 2 weeks ago against TCU, Tor Simmons was a young man that stepped into a vital role in that game. And so what that does is starts to free guys up as they start to play better and progress as players. And so they're not every play, no, they're not. But when they do, some guys have really stepped up.
Notice more 4 down from you against Iowa State. Was that just based on personnel, what you're doing? Is that a week-to-week deal you're doing with that?
I think it's going into that game. It's what makes Iowa State. That it's just the matchup. The matchup's better. Yeah, the matchup's better for how they're trying to attack you. Breece Hall is a phenomenal player, phenomenal running back, and one of the better offensive lines in the league, and not necessarily on talent across the board. It's just how they play. So, and then those tight ends. Those tight ends really kind of force you into some things that you may not normally do. I went back and looked at last year, and we had the same personnel game plan. We just we had some different things. If I could have gone back and that's where I made the final decision on it was, if we'd have just started and stuck with that, we'd have probably been in better shape.
Nice to have some of that flexibility, though, in
Yeah.
your defense to be able to do things like that.
Yeah, it is. It's allows us to, and that defense with that front is, it's a little simpler too. So.
Notice you look at their stats offensively; they don't really blow you away. But I guess when you watch them, they seem to make plays when they need to make them. If you look at their offense games, obviously the games they've won this year, is that how you characterize what you see when you watch their offense?
Oklahoma State.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's. We talked about this morning. There's a real beauty in their simplicity, and I think that's when you see that. That's, to me, it's always a sign of a good football team. When they execute what they want to do, and they're patient and they let their plays come to them because they got really good players. So I think that's something that you admire when you watch it a little bit, because it's, hey, they're not doing that much, and then here you go, it's a 60-yard touchdown, or an explosive run, or a play action pass off of it. It's they're good at what they do.
They got after Kansas, and Kansas shut down Oklahoma the week prior. Oklahoma State just got on them right away. What did they do offensively that just buried them so quickly?
It's just how they play. They're extremely physical, and like I said, they're good at what they do. They're good at what they do. They know how to they get the formationally or getting their personnel in the right spots, seeing how you're attacking them and getting the ball, finding what your weakness is, and so that's where they're just good at what they do.
You mentioned Vesterinen a little bit ago. Obviously, he's getting more and more snaps. So, what have you seen from him to allow him to get there, and sort of what's his progression, his ceiling?
Yeah, he's extremely strong. One of the things, I actually showed this video to the guys that were new on our staff to 21 this last year. During the recruiting process, I would tell him, I'd say, send me 2 videos a week working out, and he didn't miss a beat. He would send one on Tuesday, and he would send one on Friday. And somewhere in November, he sent one, and I think Eddie is right at 6'3", probably 275 pounds on average, fluctuates a little bit, but he's walking 10 yards on his hands. And so whether you've lifted a weight or not, that's a tremendous amount of core strength to be able to do that. And when you look at him play, and especially taking on guys, number one, that are bigger than him, and then taking in his position, taking on a lot of double teams, then now you have double the amount of weight, and the leverage he plays with and the strength he plays with is something that has stuck out through the time we recruited him, and then obviously since he's been here. And his first real snaps of this game were against one of the better rushing offenses in our league, and he did a phenomenal job. So his ceiling is probably whatever he wants it to be. But the stronger he gets, and the more on the side of nutrition, and as his body grows and matures, I mean and the thing that makes all that go with Eddie is how he plays. He plays extremely hard. He is the definition of a motor guy.
Jordan, going back to the even front. It does work though when you're in there, so maybe it is something that you like, but it just seems like you get a combination of big and quick guys in there too to cover things up. I'm not saying you'll use it every game, but it does seem like that. Maybe not necessarily the counter opponents. It could be something that you all use as an advantage as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look, I go back to, I think we had, you guys asked me about this at the beginning of the season, or maybe even in the off season, spring. I can't remember when it was, but there's been a real shift in Big 12 offense, just looking at it. And so, whether it's you're looking at more of power style of offenses, I wouldn't say power, I would just say more tight end based offenses that are a little more about game control than what 10 or 12 years ago, whatever it was. And so I think that as that changes from league to league or team to team, I think that's the first thing you have to change is your recruiting. You got to recruit to that and the teams that you have to be successful against. And so, and the thing we've always done, back to Troy and here, is that if we have to start with rebuilding something, it's got to start on both fronts, and that's the first place we started. And so now you're starting to see a lot of those guys, if it's applicable to that game, rotating those guys in, and that's something that's against teams like that's obviously good for us. But it does it with how we, I've always said this, that explosiveness and athleticism are more important on that front than straight up size. And so, in a lot of ways, against an offense like that, it does. It gives you something that I think gives you an advantage.
I think Kohler was pretty quiet, and I don't remember him getting open very often either. Just a byproduct of your plan, just good performances, or was a little bit of pressure that maybe kept him from getting spots?
I think that the structure of what we were playing made that a little difficult for Kohler and for 8. We knew if we could do that, that was one thing through the season that frustrated Purdy a little bit when he couldn't have what he wanted. Some of that is some easy access throws. That people, say, all right, you throw this and we'll give it to you. And say you're not gonna beat us doing that. And time again, I've seen Iowa State beat people doing that. And so it was one thing we said going in, we're gonna take that away best we can while still taking Breece Hall away. If you look at the numbers, they're really, Breece Hall's a good player. They're a little more lean toward a throwing offense, a little more honestly. Just how they get to some of it doesn't look traditional. So
Just watching Gundy through the years, and I don't know if this applies this year, but he's always had kind of an element of trick plays. Is that something that you have to keep in the back of your mind? He always seems to have one or two of those in his pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, same thing of the last 2 years is he's always, and there's never a tendency on win or wear. So you just it's always
So you got to be on guard for that.
a little bit of you can tell. I'm sure he probably likes to gamble if I had to guess. So that's I think that when you watch that's probably where that comes from.
How much they like to run the ball? Does it put an added emphasis on winning first down, kind of similar to what it was last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think they want them. That's what they want to be. That's kind of how they're built. Even with the quarterback, everything with the quarterback is based on the run game. Whether it's quarterback run, RPO, or any type of play action or bootleg. So they that's what they, and their running backs. I mean, this run of running backs really, you know, with Baylor, you know, even go back to Oklahoma. I mean, they're talented, but really starting at Baylor, they, I don't see a number of much more talented running backs than that run of guys we've seen. You know, even TCU, the Evans kid, and and these guys are in the same mold, same type of backs, just as good, just as explosive, just as powerful. I think it's the best combination of speed and power in a run of teams at running back in this league that I've ever seen.
We have time for one more question. Any other questions?
Real quick, wide receivers. I'll ask one. Fast. Obviously, they always have a downfield threat. What do you see from their wide receivers?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that sticks out. You know, they don't ask them to do a whole lot, but they're extremely fast, and they can get them the ball a number of different ways. Very, very simple how they get it to them. Really kind of based on what you're presenting to them. But they can hit home runs at any time with those guys.
Running for Warren, downhill, physical. That sounds scary. I would imagine that you guys probably aren't worried about that. It just seems like the way you all play, rallying the ball, going hard, challenge, but also inviting.
Yeah, I mean that play, which is the stretch play, is something that is really kind of a theme of the last 2 years, especially in our league. And everybody runs it a little different, you know, with how they set it up. And Warren, that's what he likes to do. He likes to get it. He likes to get his shoulder square and get downhill. If you give him, you know, you got to be smart on which seam. You obviously want to take every seam away, but the way that play sets up, it's kind of hard to do sometimes. So, you know, that's really, other than the first guy there, that's really what you got to. It's as simple as that. You get a number of hats to the ball. It's you know, that's what you got to do. But he's an extremely physical runner.